Hi, my name is Jason James, and today I will be creating a video for my technical writing class in which I explain the beginner's guide to chess, basically. After doing some research, I found out that chess originated in India somewhere around the 6th century AD, and now it has transformed into a board game that is played worldwide. Very challenging game. So I think chess is a very interesting game because it can be played by literally almost anyone, and that means blind people. So we have these numbers and letters here across the board, and they signify various combinations of places that pieces can move onto the board. So for example, let's say you had a pawn on piece A1. It had A1, and if you wanted to move the pawn 2 spaces forward, you go to A3. So this obviously gets a lot more complicated, but if you're playing a blind person, you can literally just tell them that you're moving to a certain space on the board, such as E5, D4, and then they can visualize the position of every single piece and still play you based on that. And that to me is just amazing. Okay. So next I would like to describe the movements that every single piece can make, as well as the point values of each piece. So the piece I am holding right now is called a rook. It is worth 5 points, and it can move horizontally or vertically along the board in any direction as far as the user would like to move the piece. So for instance, starting from this position, I can move the rook horizontally to any of these pieces, or starting back at its original place, I can move it vertically up, like backwards and forwards, either way, as far as I would like. So this piece that I'm holding right here is called the bishop. It is worth 3 points, and the bishop has the power to move diagonally in any direction. And by in any direction, it can go forward and right, forward and left, or back right. And it can move diagonally as far as it wants across the board, like up to the user basically. So now I am holding a piece known as the queen. It is the most valuable piece in chess next to the king, which if you capture you lose the game. But the queen has a point value of 9 points, and it is worth so many points because it can basically do the most movements of any piece. So like the rook, the queen can also go horizontally or vertically in any direction, but it can also, like the bishop, go diagonally in any direction. So go diagonally forward, diagonally back, etc. So next I'm holding the king. The king has no point value because it is said to be priceless. If you capture, or you never actually capture the opponent's king, but if you can checkmate your opponent, which I will explain later, you win the game. So you're going after your opponent's king. So if the king starts on this square, it has the power, like the queen, to move in any direction. However, it can only move 1 space at a time. So it can only move one direction from any, just to give you guys a little demonstration there, but that is the power of the king. So right now I'm holding the pawn, and it is worth 1 point, and each player has a total of 8 pawns to use. So the pawn can move only forward vertically, and at the start of the game it has the power to move 2 spaces forwardly at once, and then each sequential move after that it can only move forward 1 space at a time. However, you'd think that if the pawn, so if you see 2 pawns like this, you would think that the pawn could maybe attack this one in a vertical motion, but the pawn, when it's ready to attack, attacks diagonally. So it can go like that. And let's say there's another pawn here, that pawn could also take this pawn. So right now I am holding the knight, and the knight is worth 3 points, and it is the last piece I will be discussing. So I've placed the knight here in the middle of the board, and I've placed quarters all around the knight as well. The knight can move in an L direction in basically any direction it wants to move. So just to demonstrate that, the knight can go to this quarter by first going forward and then here. If he wants to go to this quarter, he makes an L, 2 forward and 1 here. And the knight can do this to any of these spaces it wants. And the knight is the only player that can also hop over other pieces. So if you had a pawn, let's say, threatening this knight, trying to attack it, the knight could simply avoid that movement and just hop to another piece or to another location around the board in order to escape that attack. So right here we have the original setup before any game of chess begins. So each player sets up their pieces like this. The front row contains 8 pawns, and the back row contains all of the other pieces. Has 2 rooks on each end, next to 2 knights, next to 2 bishops, and then the king is always placed on the opposite color. So if you are playing with white, the king goes on the black square, and the queen goes obviously right next to it. So the other player is also set up in such a form that his king, dark, is on the white square. He has 8 pawns, the 2 rooks, 2 knights, and 2 bishops. So right now I have my finger here on the pawn, and oh, by the way guys, white will always go first in the game. And a pretty common move is for this pawn right here to be the first pawn to be moved, and the pawn can go 2 spaces at once at the beginning of the game. And that is true for any of these pawns. So this pawn, let's say, can go here, but if another pawn on its next turn, this player can also move this pawn here. Let's say this person also wants to move this one 2 up. Maybe this guy goes here and you go here. So you can move up to 2 spaces with your pawn at the beginning of the game, and then each move after that is only 1. So this guy, for instance, cannot move 2 spaces forward because he's already moved off of his starting block. So next, I would like to describe a move known as castling, and each team or each player has the ability to castle as long as a few conditions are met. So right now, we have the king and the 2 rooks in their original starting position. So let's say the game has been going for some time and you really don't know what move to do. So in order to better protect your king, you're going to do a move called castling. And when you castle, there's 2 ways to castle. You have your king side castle and a queen side castle. If you castle to the king side, you end up with this setup. If you castle to the queen side, you end up with this setup. Now this is a completely legal move. Anyone can do this at any time as long as neither the rook nor the king is being challenged by any other piece on the board. So the conditions for castling are as follows. As long as the king and either rook that you are choosing to castle, like either side, as long as neither piece has moved from its starting position, you can castle. And as long as neither the king nor the rook is under attack from the opponent's pieces, you can castle. So one thing you can absolutely not do is if you are put in check, you cannot castle out of check just to defend that check. So right now I have set up a hypothetical situation where black is about to checkmate the king, and if he does that, he wins the game. So right now I'm going to move the knight to this piece. Now the knight is challenging the king, putting him in check. Now this is checkmate because the king has absolutely nowhere to go without black attacking and capturing the king. If he moves to this square, the bishop can attack diagonally and get him. If he moves to this square, the queen can come diagonally and get him. And if he moves anywhere up on this line, the rook can slide over and grab him. So black would have just won the game, checkmate. So in that previous example, we just explained what checkmate is, and now I'd like to talk about the difference between checkmate and check. So a check occurs when the opposing player moves their piece as to somehow challenge the king to where if they don't move it or somehow protect it, the game will be over. So to show this, we have the queen, a black queen, and a king over here. So I'm going to move the queen up. Now, the black positioned here and the white here, the king is in check. And so it's his turn to move, and he can move anywhere as long as the queen is still not attacking him. So if the king moves up, he's out of check and the game goes on. So in that last example, the black put the king in check, and when that happened, the king just moved out of the way in order to avoid the check. But there's also another way to defend a check, in which you just move one of your other pieces to somehow block this guy's attack. So if I move the queen forward, the king is in check. But rather than moving the king, I'm simply going to move this pawn forward, which blocks the king from being attacked, and also if the queen now decides to attack this pawn, it can be taken by the king, and that would be very bad for black. Alright guys, so right now to sum up everything we've learned, I'm just going to play a quick little game here with my roommate, and as you guys know, white goes first, so take it away, Logan. So Logan just moved his pawn up to 2 spaces. It's a completely legal move because that was his first move. I'm going to choose to just move my pawn only 1 space forward. So Logan has activated his knight. He can hop over these pieces. That's completely legal for the knight. So I'm going to bring my queen out right here, which is pretty dangerous, but we'll see what happens. So Logan has brought out that pawn. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but I'll just go with it. I'm going to keep... Oh! See, Logan has just taken my queen with his knight. So that was a very bad move for me. Alright, so right now we have a good little setup, and we're going to do a series of attacks to just trade some pieces, see what happens. And yeah, so I'm going to attack that pawn with my knight. The knight made an L, and I'm going to attack the pawn. So Logan is also attacked with his knight, and I am going to attack this pawn with this knight, and Logan has now taken my knight. So yeah, guys, that's a good little start to how any chess game can go. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you guys for watching my instructional video for chess, or the beginner's guide to chess. I hope you guys can now play a game of chess if you've never tried it before. It's really fun. I suggest you try it out. Thank you again. Have a good day.